Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Madam Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. On behalf of the People's Republic of Bangladesh and the delegation present here, allow me to convey our appreciation to UNISDR for organizing this third session of the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction. I also, Madam Chair, wish to compliment our host Switzerland for the excellent arrangements and gracious hospitality. Madam Chair, Bangladesh's vulnerability to disasters and climate change is well documented. The options available to us are limited and often conflicting in terms of our needs and priorities. However, we have made sustained efforts to invest in disaster risk reduction and preparedness through mainstreaming them into our national development efforts and poverty reduction strategies. Bangladesh attaches importance to a proactive policy response to disaster management and has over time shifted its focus from relief to risk reduction and building resilience through comprehensive disaster management policies and programs. This has resulted in dramatic reduction in the number of disaster-induced deaths and damages. A salient feature of our disaster management policy is the promotion of sustainable livelihoods in disaster-affected and prone areas. We have put in place a whole spectrum and range of safety net programs and food security measures to protect the most vulnerable, especially women, children, and the elderly. At the national level, through the Comprehensive Disaster Management Program, we ensure disaster and climate change proofing. And through a robust system of parliamentary monitoring and oversight, we ensure that these programs are successful and deliver the results they are intended to deliver. The present government in Bangladesh has also formulated a national disaster plan, the Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan, and the revised standing orders on disaster. The issue of framing a National Disaster Management Act remains under active consideration. Madam Chair, in the rural areas, the participatory and bottom-up community risk assessment and risk reduction action plan has been deployed to harness local knowledge and resources to identify appropriate interventions by communities with the active support and engagement of the government. In view of growing urbanization in the country, an urban disaster risk reduction agenda is being pursued through hazard assessment, contingency planning, capacity building, and the training of community-based volunteers. The government of Bangladesh has been investing in enhancing early warning capacities by facilitating smooth linkage between institutional forecasting mechanisms and community-level dissemination. We rely on thousands of trained volunteers of the time-tested cyclone preparedness program to impart cyclone warnings. Madam Chair, the challenge facing Bangladesh from the emerging threats of climate change are complex and multidimensional. Bangladesh has already made significant progress in climate change adaptation by mitigating the possible adverse impacts of climate change on people's lives and livelihoods through a combination of evidence-based research and use of technology and indigenous knowledge. Still, though, much remains to be done, making our 720-kilometer-long coastline disaster and climate-proof to protect around 35 million people who live in those areas, investing in reconstructing our aging embankments, setting up an additional 6,000 cyclone shelters, responding to the growing challenge of urban risk reduction. Madam Chair, the emerging trend of disaster and climate-induced displacements threaten our hard-earned development gains. In order to address these multiple challenges, Bangladesh needs substantial, predictable, and additional flow of financial resources and transfer of technology from the international community. While we remain on the front line of the impacts of climate change, we are also a role model in terms of our ability to translate our vulnerabilities into opportunities for sustainable development. Under the dynamic leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, we remain committed to building a knowledge-based middle-income country in pursuit of our government's Vision 2021. On the international front, Bangladesh has emerged as a leading voice in the ongoing climate change negotiations on behalf of the least developed countries and the most vulnerable. We call upon all our development partners to redouble their commitment and support to upscale our disaster reduction and climate change adaptation efforts. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the third session of the Global Platform on Disaster Risk Reduction creates an opportunity to review the progress made in implementing the Hyogo framework of action over the past years and to chart a clear, effective, result-oriented course for the future on the basis of the Global Assessment Report. Bangladesh reiterates its readiness to engage with member states on global measures and actions to address disaster risk and climate change adaptation through a holistic approach. Madam Chair, we are confident that the international community will continue to strengthen this platform by providing necessary guidance and impetus to implement the Hyogo framework. Our committed and collective efforts can indeed turn our objective of minimizing, aspirationally eliminating disaster risk across the world into sustainable realities. Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me an opportunity to present the country statement for Bangladesh. Thank you.